Hello everybody, welcome back to Hidden Harvest with Liz. Today we're going to be doing the what if. And today's what if is a little bit more on the topical thing. I do apologize for taking so long to publish yet another what if. I was trying to make sure that instead of just like randomly what ifing whatever, what if I actually had a very good reason for what ifing that particular thing. Now, the goal of the what if, in case you guys have missed the very first episode, is to speculate and therefore find solutions to problems, not become hopeless in situations, not to create more fear porn that is out there on the internet. There are plenty of channels who have that. And this particular thing that we are talking about was actually brought up by another channel, and I will bring that up in just a minute. And their message at the end of all of that was to be hopeful in your preparations, and that is what I would like to be able to do with this channel, is to be hopeful with our preparations, because if we're not hopeful, then we are not actually preparing. We're stuck. We're in fear, and that's not really a good way to live life. That's not a good way to plan. That's not a good way to prep, and it's not a good way to what if. It's boring to what if and do nothing but fear propaganda. It's better to speculate ways of survival. So, let's get into it, shall we? We have got our What Ifopedia here. I actually need to put the name on the outside of my What Ifopedia. Oh, that's actually cutting me off. Here, let me put it back here so I can see it. Sadly, with me using the effects on the camera, you're not going to be able to see my What Ifopedia, but I will try and make sure I do all of my questions, which somehow or another I've managed to miss. The first one, what if? What are we actually what ifing today? What if there is tampering in the food supply chain? And this one is specific to the introduction of GMOs to backyard farmers. Previous to now, there have been a lot of seed companies that would put non-GMO on their seed things. And it was repetitive by quite a few people that I use non-GMO, I do the non-GMO, none of my foods are GMO. Well, up until recently, nobody in the backyard gardening community could purchase a GMO seed anyway. The reason being is the GMO seed was created for big agriculture farmers in order to create massive amounts of crops using specific types of genetics, especially having to do with, and I'm going to be very, very vague here because I don't want anybody to come after me as far as big company goes to tell me that, no, that's not what we're doing, that's not how it works. There's plenty of research to say otherwise, just nothing has been done about it. So I will be vague. There are corn crops that have been genetically modified to handle being sprayed with pesticide and herbicide, whereas the herbicide would not bother the corn, it would bother all of the other plants around it, thereby making it where these large agricultural systems could readily spray their plants and not have to worry about it killing their plants, only the other ones. Now, I don't want to get into the why this is bad and how it might have affected the human body, having these chemicals not only sprayed on top of the food, completely saturating the dirt, but also in the genetics of the food that we are eating. Let's not even get into all of the badness that could be what if on that one. We don't even have to get into all of the badness that could be on the animals that are in these areas. Understand that most like large agricultural areas where they do, I don't know, corn, they're not in a large greenhouse. They're out in a field. There are things that live in fields, mice, rabbits, larger creatures that are affected by the chemicals that are sprayed on and permeate those areas. So aside from all of those, because getting into all of that could lead to a whole nother group of what ifs, let's specifically talk about the concept of a company splicing a seed to make it do a thing. That's intimidating enough, especially when you know scientists have a tendency of doing a thing without really understanding what it is the consequences might be. There's plenty of history of all of that. So in the state of agriculture itself, the people who have access to these seeds, they are the intellectual property of the companies that created them. A couple specifically have spliced their coding, I guess, into, say, corn to make it where this herbicide, I won't name the name, can be used on this. Well, because of that, this company and anybody else invested in it own the genetics to the corn. In order for the normal farmer to get access to those, they have to sign waivers. They have to sign agreements. They have to agree to not save seeds from those because those are the intellectual property of a company. If you want more of that company's seed, you must buy more of the seed. You can't take the seed and leave them out of it. They want their cut, basically. That has actually led to a lot of things. There was a whole season prior to recent stuff. I don't know exactly what year it was, but back when the U.S. was first working on its agricultural system, there were certain departments that would actually call farmers up and find out about their seeds. They would collect seeds. They will send the seeds out to other people to try in different regions to find out in what areas the best seeds worked, which hybrids worked, what's working in your area that might work in another area. They were actually gathering information that was pertinent to our survival and giving out that information and seeds for free. There was one time in the U.S. where you could call up these offices and ask for seeds, and they would freely send them to your house for you to plant. That does not happen anymore because at some point, all of these awesome seed hybrids that people had created, certain individuals out there started buying up those rights to those seed lines in order to make a profit off of those seeds. Now that created so many problems back in history. I'm not going to get into all that. You guys definitely look it up. The history of all of this stuff is very, very fascinating. If I can, I doubt I will be able to find the video I got all of this information from. And then subsequently looking all of this information up was a rabbit hole I was not expecting. But that's the short of it. That's like the very tip of the iceberg. There's so much more there. Now, if they went through all of that just to buy up hybrid stuff, the stuff that people just cross-pollinated, the ones that did really well, they bought up those genetics and kept them. Now, if you're paying scientists to cross your plant with your herbicide, or your plant with a pesticide, or your plant and something else, obviously you're going to want intellectual domain over whatever it is. So, now, taking this all the way back to backyard farmers having access to GMOs. Okay. For those who don't quite understand the GMO scene, have not been around for the GMO situation, have not researched GMOs in general. Some of the GMO genetics will never be out of our food system ever, because just the pollen and their existence cross-pollinates with other people's food who are not actually planting GMOs. There have been companies that have gone after farmers who do not have GMO products. They have gone after them and had their food tested to see whether or not they're like corn over here, cross-pollinating with corn over here, and they tested this corn and said, no, you got some of your genetics from my GMO seeds. I own your corn now. That stuff has happened before. So now we have GMOs coming to the backyard gardener in the form of a tomato. A tiny cherry tomato that has been cross-pollinated with a snapdragon to make it purple. Interesting. I'm not sure exactly why they felt the need to do this. There was absolutely no call to do this. There are probably a few people out there who trust these companies, trust the government, and everything that scientists have been saying for the last however many years about certain situations, that are very, very excited for this new GMO variety that they finally can put into their backyards, which is okay. You do you. That's what I say about that one. But the fact that those guys are now going to exist out in people's backyards means that there is a chance for those types of genetics to get mixed up in your genetics. And just given our history, this is just the what if part. We haven't even gotten to the rest of it. We're trying to fully think out the what if of this situation. the what if, and then the situation afterwards. Let's say someone in your neighborhood is growing this GMO tomato. Now, you may not even, as a backyard gardener, know that that neighbor even gardens. If they're like fenced in or something like that, or they don't talk about it, they don't hang out in the neighborhood, grill outs or whatever, you may not even know that they have those tomatoes over there. But somehow or another, their tomato cross-pollinated with your tomato in your backyard. Now, I don't want to call into speculation that certain companies who had a hand in making that GMO are not going to suddenly be interested in whether or not your tomatoes have cross-pollinated with their tomatoes and whether or not they now own your tomato seeds. That's a bit of an issue because they will cross-pollinate. Now, how likely is it that these kinds of situations are going to happen? I think it was only a matter of time before companies tried to further monetize their stuff. I think they've pretty much saturated the market with big-scale farmers. They saw what happened in 2020 with the big outrage from people who were completely terrified of what was going on in the world and decided now was the time to become self-sufficient and started their own gardens, bought chickens for the first time, all those things to become more self-prepared. They have immediately thought, oh gracious, they're going to stop eating our food. We need their money. So how do we get their money? We make them GMOs too. Now, that might just be the thing that they are doing. I have no idea. The company that is actually in charge of this might genuinely have people's best interest at heart. I will not disparage the company that did this. There are possible great implications for GMO food. My issue is in every single large money-making anything, typically the people who rise to the top are not the ones who are humanitarians. Usually corruption rises to the top. Now, I'm not going to say that every single company and every single department or whatever is corrupt and not every single person inside those areas are necessarily corrupt. I don't want to state that because it's not necessarily true. I'm not going to disparage the company, but I will ask the company, why? Why this? Why now? Why after all this time? You know what's going to happen. We already know what's going to happen. They did it before to the mega farmers, and now they're going to do it to the smaller farmers because they're losing customers. They are driving out the big farmer. We already see it over in Europe. For those of you who are not keeping track of the farmer protests that are over in the UK, not UK, but in Europe, I would definitely say go on TikTok, not TikTok, but go on X and look into that. That's like the only place I've seen them talking about the farmer protests. It is serious. They are talking about the 2030 agenda all the time over there, and farmers are furious. So are they doing that here? Yes. We're just several years behind them. I won't get into that conspiracy theory because behind every conspiracy theory, there's a bit of conspiracy fact in it. Even if it's not the whole thing, there's a tiny bit of truth probably hiding somewhere in there. So the 2030, I wouldn't even say is a conspiracy theory. The entire thing is possibly, depending on whose version you listen to, is probably conspiracy fact because they put most of the information on their website with the WEF and the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum are kind of doing the same thing. So they've put it on their website, so that's what they're doing. So we can definitely say, okay, these big companies know that the farmers are going down, so they have to get their product in the hands of the backyard gardener in order to make sure that they are still relevant. So now we have what if fully, not necessarily, we could go further down the rabbit hole, but I'm going to stop there because I don't want to get into the fear factor. This is more of the warning of it. This is where it went before. This is probably where it will go again, is suddenly they own the food that you're growing in the back. There is already talk in certain states. There has been discussions had about attempting to tax people who are growing their own food. Just backyard gardeners, not farmers, not big agricultural centers or whatever. They're talking about saying, hey, you have a garden in your backyard. We're going to go count your cabbages and we're going to tax you for it. There's already that discussion being had, which is the reason why when I started out my channel, I said hidden harvest, because I want my food hidden. Some of it's going to be very, very obvious to the eye. There's a reason for it being obvious. The other stuff is going to be hidden. I would definitely recommend, if I were you, to employ similar tactics, but that is aside from the what if. So let's move on with the actual what if. Name one thing. Actually, first, let's cover the inspiration for this. I have seen many people talking about this tomato that is either really good if you're that type of person or really bad if you're that type of person. Depending on which side of this you're falling on, depends on whether or not it's really good or really bad. Me, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that they've decided instead of having one set of income, they've opted for another set of income off the backs of the backyard gardener. Typically, people who are backyard gardeners aren't necessarily rich folks. They're just trying to feed their family. So in this case, I would say, yeah, I'm not happy about it. But like I said, everybody do your garden your way as long as you're gardening, and try to be the healthiest you possibly can and be very disconcerting about where you're getting your seeds, especially now. The inspiration for this, the actual inspiration for this particular video was from Roots and Refuge. She did a video the other day talking about how she was thinking about this, and in her mind she likes to also what if situations, and it's very easy to go down a spiral of what if this, then this, what if this, then this, and before you know it, you're at the bottom of the drain thinking there's no reason to get up and do anything anymore because it's so overwhelming. There are other ways, and the only way to do that is to properly what if a situation and apply reason to it. Because if you can step back from the situation and say, hey, I've already thought about this. We're not going to think about the bad what if. We're going to do we thought about it, and now we're going to think of what we can do in place of it. So, I'm going to go basically the same way she did. I'm not necessarily wanting to steal her idea, but her idea was absolutely beautiful and on brand. I'm going to link that video in the description of this video. I would definitely recommend going to watch the whole thing. She seemed like she was having a very hard time of voicing her opinion on how she felt about it, as she had an opinion that was kind of somewhere in the middle. But she was afraid of what her audience might think and whether or not she was going to get in trouble in some way for having said something. I will just simply say, I don't like it. And I think, like she said in a previous video, it muddies the water. It makes a mess of the whole situation. It was a whole lot easier when they didn't even step their toes into this category. I can see why financially they have decided to do it. And because I can see the financial reason they did it, I'm already skeptical. So, I'm sad to say I don't think it's for the kindness of humanity that they have done this. I think it's for a money reason. And I don't like the implication of that. So, for my reason, and just because I feel more, I won't say more emotional about it. I've been thinking about this for a while, so my emotions are kind of out of it. More of, I know where this is going because this is where companies tend to go whenever financial stuff comes into it, especially when there is an element of corruption, and we already know the agriculture has a sense of corruption to it. Given all the stuff and things we do know about our food departments, our food industries, and stuff like that, especially here in America, some of the things that are banned in other countries for having caused cancer and for the horrible things that they do to a human body, and they put it on a shelf and package it and let people eat it in America. So, that having been said, let's move on to the what do you do about it? What's one thing that you could possibly do about it? And I will yet again reference her video because this was not a thought that I had before I watched her video. Yes, the concept was there, but the how was not there. I had no idea how you would implement that, but she covers it in her video, so I would reference hers. It's name one thing is save your seeds. Save your seeds before everything goes on the market. Learn how to save your seeds would be a good start. Every single type of plant that you grow, there is a way to save their seeds. For the most part, most of the time, there is a way in which to save seeds. You may have to find out a lot more about the plants that are growing in your backyard because you never know. At some point, you might be going into stores and they could, I don't know, this is just spitballing because, you know, it's never happened before. They suddenly make it illegal to put on your packages whether or not something is GMO because of reasons. I mean, it's not like they have done that before, right? It's not like they've obfuscated where things come from in our food industry. It's not like they don't tell us what all is in our food already, right? So, why would that stop them from, or I mean, why on earth would these people feel inclined to ban the sticker non-GMO? It's a possibility. So, whenever things start happening later on, if and when things start speeding up, it might become more and more important to save your own seeds. She was talking about making your own seed storage. I would definitely say at this particular point, if you know of a company that you trust, that you've tried their seeds before and you like them, that you get a couple of extra packages of the seeds that you really, really like, and then package them up and stick them in the bottom of your freezer or other places and take care of them. And every single plant that you use every single year, I would learn how to save seeds from it and the best possible way to make sure that they're not cross-pollinated. And she does cover that, plus she has an older video where she talks about it. Definitely go watch those and learn how to save your seeds and be mindful of how to save your seeds. And we will move on from that. So, I did the inspiration, I named the one thing, and I did the expanding part all in that whole conversation. The name one thing is Save Seeds. The inspiration was the Roots and Refuge video that I watched. And expanding is learning how to save seeds, which is her secondary video that she talks about in that video. I would definitely recommend going to watch that too, because you do learn some tips. Whenever I was thinking about the tomatoes, the way she tells you to save the seeds on those, I would not have thought about it. And definitely go watch it. So, research. On the research, I would definitely say this does require research because each one of your plants, they change how their cycle works. So you're going to have to learn those cycles on the plants that you like the most. Like, for instance, onions are in a 2-year life cycle. The first year they bulb up. The second year they actually produce their flowers and their seeds. If I'm not mistaken, that's the onion, or some onions. I'm trying to think of other things that have like an unusual life cycle. Most places where you get asparagus, the ones that they sell are the male ones. In order to get the seeds from asparagus, you have to make sure that you have female ones. One of the best ways to handle that, if you want to make sure that you can always get more seeds for your asparagus in case anything happens to your group of asparagus, is to get seeds now and plant those up. And anytime the female ones sprout, you get those seeds. The reason why they don't typically sell the female plant is because it does not produce as much asparagus that you can actually eat. It puts all of its effort into producing the seed, which is the reason why most folks don't sell it. Like, if you buy the little spiderly leg things that you need to put inside your ground, chances are they're going to be the male one. So think about that. There's going to be a lot of different seeds that are going to have different ways, different parts that you're going to have to worry about and how you're going to protect them to keep them from cross-pollinating and things like that. I would also say in the case of certain things, like maybe invest a little bit more in an orchard of some sort, some fruiting trees of some sort, even if you have to keep them in pots and bring them inside during the wintertime. Those would also help because you're not going to be worried about seeds. And if they're inside, they can't cross-pollinate. This could be an issue, but now is the time to learn how to do that, and now is the time to put back the seeds that we may need later on. And who knows, the seeds that you put back now might not help you, but they might help your family later on. They might help cousins, whoever. There are people who are finding 90-year-old seeds and putting them in the ground and finding out they're still growing, so it may not even be anybody you know that it could wind up helping. So definitely consider that. And help in life. Is learning how to save your own seeds going to help you in life? Yes, for a lot of reasons. When you think about just the tomato, just the lonely tomato, you could buy a pack of seeds for anywhere between $1 at the Dollar Tree, or $1.25 tree now, maybe even $1.50 tree depending on where you live. You can buy a pack of seeds. Now, I don't think you can buy tomatoes there. Those are just usually flowers that you can find at the Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and all those kind of things like that. The package of seeds for tomatoes are between $2 to $3 and even up into the $6 and $7 range, depending on how many, what kind, whether or not they're heirloom or hybrids or whatever. All of that stuff being said, you get a pack and it's probably 20, 25, 50 possibly seeds. Now, if you think about it, one tomato that's going to grow might have that. Plus it's going to grow other tomatoes, which is going to be that plus another one. And if you gather up quite a few of your own, that's just like, it's exponential growth on your your plants. Basically, you can take one grouping of seeds that you decide to save your seeds on, and those seeds would get you your next grow season, your next grow season, your next grow season, and possibly even onto that. And in that time, you're still collecting seeds from these guys. So it's exponential growth. Plus you can give those seeds to other people, and they can start their own gardens, or you can expand it into another area, or if you have to move house or something like that, you've got extra seeds to take with you. Any number of things. The thing is saving your seeds is exponential growth. It's stocks, basically. You can do that for just about every single plant that you grow. You can save the seeds, and next year you have twice as many, 5 times as many, 100 times as many seeds as you had the previous year. So, money saving. Not to mention, should crap ever hit the fan, and you know how to save the seeds from plants that a lot of people like to eat, you're more likely to be of use to you and your family and to anybody else who is surviving near you if you know how to save seeds. If you go to a store, a big box store, after crap hits the fan, you find a whole bunch of seeds, you put them in the ground. What do you do next season if you don't know how to save the seeds? So I can only think of benefits whenever it comes to knowing how to save your seeds. Plus, knowledge never gets old, and you can pass that knowledge down to other people, and everybody gets extra seeds and lives longer and healthier lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a long-ish rant about this situation, but I hope you guys do go check her out. I'm pretty sure you need no help finding her channel, Roots and Refuge. But just in case if anybody's here who's coming from the gaming channel, who is interested in also gardening, she is a very large content creator on YouTube, and there's a lot of people who watch her. So I would definitely recommend her channel, and I would definitely recommend that particular video when talking about this situation. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and call it here. And I will try not to be late on my next what if, but I am trying to make sure they are more topical and a little bit less speculation on the what ifs now that we've actually gotten into it. There might be some throw off crazy what ifs, like what if Krampus, like we did during Christmas, but I would like most of them to be actually on point and about things that are going on nowadays. So I will see you in the next one. You have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, and you stay shiny. Bye!